we'll clap for our panelists and our moderator as they join. We'll start with Ash, who's our moderator. Coming up, Ash. I think we're out of order. Head of CRM and Insights at Revolution Beauty. She's joined by Erin, former Chief Marketing Officer at Gordon Ramsay Restaurants. Erin, welcome to the stage. Thanks for joining us. I think we were at a Gordon Ramsay restaurant last night. Dan, the CEO of Debenhams, and Graham Wilson. Oh, yes, Dan, come on. Welcome to the stage. And Graham, who we heard from earlier from Benson's for Beds, the Director of Digital and Omnichannel. Please give our whole panel a round of applause.
Thank you so much, Amanda, for the intro. Welcome, everyone, to our panel discussion. I'm thrilled to be moderating today's conversation. I think we all agree we are at a fascinating and transformative point in history. As AI advances, it's not just about updating the tools that we use, but it's also about revolutionizing the approach to work itself and the workforce as well in terms of reshaping that. Amazing keynotes and sessions earlier. There's a few points which stayed with me from, forgot the name, Raj and Baratunda. The 3 A's. So it's no-brainer that AI has the capability to accelerate our businesses and customer experiences, but it's also about accommodating the workforce in terms of how we develop that skill set in-house and augmenting the human efforts rather than replacing them. So with that note, let's get started, and we can hear from the experts. It'd be great if you can share a few examples of how AI has helped accelerate or enhance efficiency, scale, and speed to your operations. Let's start with Erin.
Sure. So there's probably 3 key ways which I've worked with AI, much more so in recent years, but when I was thinking about it and reflecting, the journey probably started in 2015. So the first is emphatically all things search and performance marketing, just really enhancing that machine learning as soon as we could and as soon as we could get smarter and more efficient. I think all elements of CRM and personalization, I think what that can unlock and actually seeing even further into the future this morning has been so interesting. So CRM's been a huge area. And then lastly, it's definitely the creative side of AI. I think we've all seen examples of that done not so well when businesses are very keen to get to the party. I would always encourage people to kind of wait for the right moment, and that's definitely what I've tried to do with the businesses I've worked in.
Amazing. Dan, any examples?
I think we're on a continuous journey of experimentation, whether that's through production, performance marketing, product attribution, demand forecasting, dynamic pricing. We're adopting an experimentation approach. We're trying lots of different things. Some have worked, some haven't worked, some have worked brilliantly for us. And we're really trying to foster that culture of innovation, experimentation, and I think most importantly, creating a culture of psychological safety around AI, because some of the people that you need to advance the use cases within your organizations are potentially fearful of the consequences that has for their roles and the roles that they play. And we found that to be a really important unlock to embracing AI technology in the workplace and to strip down some of those barriers culturally that previously we were facing.
Amazing. Graham?
I think just to continue, I think where we've seen it very much is around how we use it to scale the team. So we're only a small organization. We don't have a huge team within the digital side of things. So how can we use AI to help us deliver more and go faster? How can we also use the AI to kind of help improve the back-end information that then flows through into the front end? So whether that be enriching products, whether it's how we curate and define content that we want to put out there. And a lot of the other stuff that kind of Erin has talked about around kind of CRM and performance marketing as well.
Great, amazing examples there. How are you measuring the AI impact? Are you seeing the impact at a macro level, or is it more around the micro level within campaigns that you are activating?
I think it depends on the channel and what you're trying to do, because I've spent many years working with a lot of stakeholders who want to quantify everything, right? And if only we could. We can quantify a hell of a lot, and we should hold ourselves to really high account as marketeers. However, sometimes magic will trump logic. So I think it's about really identifying the questions you're trying to answer, really clear KPIs, and also being open, honest, and courageous that sometimes one can't quantify it with simple metrics, but the halo effect, that sort of rolled up attribution, it will come, and having that courage to really believe in that as well.
I think it's really, going back to the foundation of, improved e-commerce performance over the last 10 years, which has been multivariate testing, and actually the ability to test and test and test, and to try not just an AI-led service against not a non-AI-led service, but multiple versions and iterations of that AI-led service. Because what we've definitely found is that we might have proven that AI was superior to the non-AI solution that we were using, but very often the first implementation of the AI technology delivered a marginal benefit, but by testing, optimizing and improving that, we had some enormous benefits that being delivered from that. So again, back down to that process of continuous experimentation, continuous improvement, but all built on that foundation of multivariate testing.
And I think for us, it's about kind of identifying what those real problems are that we're trying to solve, number one, but then trying to understand what those little micro conversions are that you're trying to optimize for. So rather than thinking about kind of like the big hero metrics, it's actually about trying to find those little like steps forward or nudges down the process that you can then see the impact in. Otherwise, I think for us, it would just get washed up in a bigger number or be distracted by another initiative. So I think to Dan's point, it's about testing and learning. I think it's about being really clear on what the objective of that test is, but finding that really kind of like tight sort of micro conversion that you can then really kind of see the impact in at whatever stage it is that you're doing.
Let's go back to the journey. Dan, I don't know if you can talk through in terms of how was the conversation within your organization in terms of integrating AI? Were there challenges or was it straightforward? And what did you do to overcome them in case there were any challenges?
Look, I think the challenges are twofold. One are external and one set are internal. I think externally, and this is, to partners, potential partners and vendors, there's a process of experimentation, and the vendor, I always find, feels like there's a presumption of the impact that it's going to have. It's going to drive huge multi-million-pound benefit for the organisation, and they just expect you to accept that. And we spent a lot of time trying to make sure that we have a good foundation for partnerships with potential AI partners and suppliers there so that we can adopt the test, learn, iteration, experimentation, and set up a framework that takes into account a failure. If the product doesn't deliver the improvements that they are promising or that they are delivering, then that won't form part of our architecture and technology suite going forward. We found that relatively easy to overcome. Most vendors, most partners embrace that. But I think the second one was by far the most significant, and that's cultural resistance to AI technology, automation, and a real fear that can exist within an employee base that if you go down a route of adopting significant technological change, automation and AI in the business area that you're responsible for, are you essentially doing yourself out of a job? And particularly in the creative space, I've noticed that most significantly because they're the teammates and the colleagues that are actually best placed to figure out how we use AI technology, but are most concerned about the impact of using that AI technology. And so creating that culture of psychological safety around the testing of AI has been super important, and educating colleagues that this is part of an evolution and that the role might be changing, and they're mastering a new set of skills and capabilities and ways of working, that they're not just essentially trying to eliminate the role that they're doing today. That's actually a lot easier to explain than it has been to do. We're still very much on a journey in that respect, but we've definitely found internal cultural resistance out of fear for jobs to be one of the biggest barriers to the adoption of AI.
I think we've been quite lucky because I think the one thing that we try and do is not try and dictate, this is how you must work, this is what you must use. So we've got no we must use AI to do this, because the adoption side of things then does become a challenge. The team that we have very much been on the kind of the driving force behind a lot of our adoption around AI. So a lot of it has been about, well, actually, I've got loads of work to do, and everyone just keeps giving me kind of like more stuff to do. How can I find ways in which to kind of like make my life easier? And I think, certainly within our CRM team, we run the business off a CRM team of 2, right? And they've got 2 brands to support, and we're quite demanding around that. So, using AI to kind of help them understand, whether it's subject line optimization or whether it's kind of just themes or whatever it might be that they need to go after, they've really embraced it. And I think that takes away some of the, I fear for my role, because actually they're seeing how they can use that technology to kind of help them achieve what they need to achieve.
We found much the same, actually, Graham, in terms of my teams have always been really wanting to try new things, to try new tech, to be quite thirsty towards it. I think there's naturally always going to be a caution with it, but in terms of the challenges that I've faced in my roles, it's definitely been, and certainly at the earliest stage, that sell-in to very senior stakeholders, be it the board, be it the city. When you're suggesting 10 years ago that we should use this really cool machine learning and we should spend multi-million pounds in this area, a lot of people at that stage are just going to be like, what the hell is she talking about, right? It's like the robots are taking over. It was a scary world. And even in creative AI and that Gen AI, I think we're still in that place. So I think it's always about, in terms of overcoming hurdles, speaking to your audience in a way that they will understand. So I always think about what would the CFO think, because I'm a marketeer, right? So I'm the enemy or the friend, depending on how that pitch goes. But I think always, convey that capability and the opportunity, show really small examples at first and then scale. But I think actually creating and fostering a culture where teams can really thrive, where they're really excited about the new, and the impossible possibilities that they don't even know exist. We saw a glimpse into the future earlier. I think the sky's the limit, and I think as leaders in this space, our challenge is to create cultures where teams can flourish and fly.
Amazing. Going back to the theme of our discussion, and I think you all touched on the teams and roles, etc. So how are you developing skill sets, within your teams, or are you hiring experts who have experience in implementing these AIs? What's the plan? What's your strategy?
So I think for me, it's about developing the existing team, right? This is a way to enrich people's excitement around being at work. I mean, to the point, Erin makes it is fun. It's new. It's kind of it's not something for the faint-of-hearted either. So I think for me, it's about how do we use AI to help drive personal development? How do we sell beds and mattresses. It's not the most fun product in the world. So actually, by bringing in technology and new technology, actually that's a really good way to kind of keep people engaged, especially in the part of the country where we are, where we're rich with kind of different e-commerce businesses that are throwing huge amounts of money at kind of innovation. Actually, it's a real good way for us to keep and keep hold of good talent.
I think it's important to recognise that everybody's at the start of a journey, and pretty much everybody's at the start line and not far beyond the start line. So it's not like we're going into a space where there's huge amounts of experience and expertise that exists externally that you can procure and source in. Actually, everybody's pretty much at the same starting point, and that should be seen as, and we're seeing it as, an opportunity to develop a new set of skills, capabilities internally that embraces the new and emerging technologies that come out. And I always find that developing internally is often the better way, because those colleagues have the better understanding of our business, and for all the use cases that partners might show you and vendors might show you, actually the application of those use cases are best understood and best optimized by the colleagues working in your teams today.
And let's be honest, you don't work in marketing and digital, particularly at the moment, if you want an easy life, right?
Yeah.
The only constant is change, and being really comfortable within that. Of course, whenever you can, progressing your team, developing them is what we all want to do. I think the reality of how AI is developing is that it's that time for deep, deep specialists, job roles that probably only a handful of people in the room today even know exist or could exist. So I think there's keeping your team with you, taking them forward and fostering that culture, but being really open to roles that won't have existed 5 or 10 years ago that are now probably fundamental in many people's teams today. And just thinking, it's that courage, the sky's the limit, but being really, really curious about what might come next.
So in terms of, at Revolution, everyone's really excited about, everything that we can do with Bloomreach and all the AI features, and there's always this hunger in terms of we would want to give it a go. And, in terms of where it sits and who gets involved, etc., that's a bit of a conversation that, we constantly have, where the merchandising team, wants a piece of that, a marketing team, CRM, etc. Have you had that kind of hunger coming from different teams? Where does it sit? Does it even sit in one place? Is it across teams?
Yeah, I think both to your point and AI generally, because I've heard a few times today your AI strategy, and of course we all want that. That's kind of what we're here today. But I think the second it becomes like a separate entity, because we've all lived through various changes, right? Then that can be quite dangerous. So in my world, I would challenge every department to think about what's the objective, what are we trying to do, and then what's the best way to unlock it. And quite often AI is going to be the answer to that, right? But to me, that's asking the question the right way round. I think the second any department's like, shit, we should be doing something on AI, let's tick the box,
Yeah.
or God, this is really cool, because we've, like I said before, we've all seen really bad examples of this and no one wants to do that. I think asking the question the right way round, and actually the reality is that AI should and will sit in every single department in a business.
So, yeah.
I think what we've seen is everybody wants to be involved in determining the output. And traditionally, that's what people have been doing in retail and consumer, what the email looks like, what the website looks like, what the homepage is going to look like, how we're going to launch this promotion, what the promotion is going to be. And we're pivoting to focus people on the inputs, because actually, what are the key data points, what's the information that we need to input, and then we're using technology to determine the output. And again, that's a big cultural change, and rather than predetermining what that output is going to look like, you're focusing on the inputs, feeding in the right information, and that output is likely to be very different for every individual that's going to have that experience when they come to your website or receive that marketing communication or have that product offer served to them. So again, everybody wants to be involved, but we're trying to pivot them from thinking about the output to focusing on the input, because we want to use the technology to determine the optimal output for each individual customer. And again, culturally, that's a big change.
Yeah. So designing a campaign with outcome in mind, in terms of
has been what we've always been doing,
Yeah.
and actually now it's about focusing on the inputs to allow the technology to determine what the optimal output should be.
Yeah. Okay. Anything to add there?
Yeah. No, I think that pretty much does it. I guess for me, I think I always go back to this, right? AI isn't going to solve all your problems. You need to know what your problems are first, right? So you need to be really clear on what is the thing that you're trying to solve here. And then actually AI and technology, they're the things that will enable it. And actually, you're right, you need to get the data in the right place. You need to understand how you're going to measure the success of it. But unless you've got that kind of really clear picture in your head of what problem you're trying to solve, whether it's from a customer perspective or whether it's from an internal point of view, you're not really going to know whether you've succeeded or not. So yeah.
Right. Last question. Any advice that you would give to leaders here in terms of getting their teams to embrace AI?
So I think it's not easy, right? So we've been trying with various different solutions, but one of the things we've had to accept is the amount of time it has taken us to kind of try and get the models, get the technology, get the solution to a place where we are comfortable. And that takes effort, right? It takes a lot of test and learn. It takes a lot of rejigging of your data. And it takes a lot of bravery as well, right? So you've got to be prepared for whatever you're doing to come up with some interesting responses. It's no different to what a human would do, though, right? So humans make mistakes. Humans answer questions wrongly. AI is going to do exactly the same thing. And I think you've just got to get comfortable with that. It's all part of the journey that you're going on. And ultimately, the more you trust it and the more you kind of feed into it, the better and more realistic it's going to get. I think the other thing you've just got to be mindful of is, it's your data at the end of the day. So you need to be mindful of where you're pushing that data. Because if you're pushing it into places, into the public domain, then it's going to be used by these models to help other people, right? So you need to really think that process through. So as well as it taking time to kind of get the models to where you need them to be, you also need to think about kind of, I guess, the consequences of what you're doing as well that could have other impacts in the space.
I would encourage people to get started. It's sometimes easier to sit on those sidelines to say, I'm going to follow, I'm going to wait and see and see how it develops with others. I think, get started, have a healthy degree of skepticism and cynicism. We've certainly seen 1 in 2 the experiments that we've tried, not deliver the results that were expected. We're not being discouraged by that. We're seeing that as an encouraging sign that we're pushing the boundaries, that we're, operating at the edge of what is and isn't possible, and just continually iterate and experiment and see what's right for your business, because certainly there's a number of things we put in that we thought were going to be complete no-brainers, and we've learned that actually for our business, for our customers, for how they interact with us, we should do something differently, and we're focusing on chasing down what that something different is.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I would say sort of take out some of the loadedness of AI, and I think a lot of what we've heard this morning has done that. At the second a subject matter or an area becomes the other, people become afraid of it. And I think there's a lot of fear around it that thankfully we're progressing on, and we're rightly democratizing the entire area, which is great. But I would say to each and every team to be really courageous and go for it, and be really comfortable with things are going to go, some's going to go really well, some will be okay, and some will really fail. And that's okay as well, and creating a culture, again, that can do that. I think that creativity to really be open to the possibilities of what it could bring in performance marketing, in creative, in search, in CRM, it's exponential, really. But lastly, I would say it's having the conviction behind it. So I think in terms of this panel and thinking of the workforce, the teams, the cultures, trusting in the talent, trusting in that sort of instinct on top of all the insight that really sets the most talented people that we've always worked with apart. So just thinking about it in the round, being open, knowing it could unlock the impossible, and just being really excited about what the future might hold.
Amazing. Yeah, having that balance, human touch and AI, and yeah, definitely, I think start small, but definitely start, in terms of, I guess the easiest place to start is, your CRM, email, website personalization, all those campaigns are definitely quick wins, but obviously you can scale it further, and investing in your single customer view is key, because that allows AI models to drive precise insights and personalization. So thank you all for joining the panel. Any questions from the audience? No?
Thank you.